Hello, my friend Pastor Curt here, and as always, I got a question for you. Have you ever been in a conversation, you tried to tell a story, you tried to make an anecdote, you tried to bring up a point, and no one listened to you? I mean, you're just at a restaurant and everyone's talking, you're like, that reminds me of a time, and they just keep talking. Or maybe you start the story, there's interruption, and no one comes back to the story. They don't want to hear the end of your story. Well, maybe this didn't happen to you. I talk a lot, so it happens to me all the time. And it gets me thinking, why do some people actually attract attention and others don't? Why do some people, when they say stuff, man, everyone listens? If you're older, you'll remember that old E.F. Hutton commercial. When E.F. Hutton talks, everyone listens. Well, there's a guy right at the beginning of the book of Mark, and man, when he talks, everyone listens. He never had this problem. Every dinner party he went to, they served locusts and wild honey, and every story he told, they listened to it. Of course, I'm talking about John the Baptist. It's so interesting. God sends him, Old Testament prophet style, to prepare for Jesus' ministry. And this is what it says about him, Mark 1, 4 through 6. And so John the Baptist appeared in the wilderness, preaching a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins. The whole of the Judean countryside and all the people of Jerusalem went out to him, confessing their sins. They were baptized by him in the Jordan River. John wore clothing made of camel's hair with a leather belt around his waist, and he ate locusts and wild honey. Such an odd, action-packed, typically Mark-esque little passage. It tells us, man, revival's breaking out. The Jerusalem urbanites are coming out. The suburban and farmer people are coming out. Everyone's getting baptized. And by the way, let's take a break and talk about his clothing and his diet. What does it all mean? Here's the question that Mark is answering. Why did John the Baptist have such a powerful moral credibility? Right now in our culture, a lot of people are in an outrage and they're saying, we're doing this wrong and we're doing that wrong. And they're trying to be listened to. But sometimes, I think especially as Christians, we lack moral credibility. John had this in spades. Everyone knew, whether they agreed with him or disagreed with him vehemently, that he had the morality in his personal life to speak the truth he was speaking. What are the characteristics of someone with moral credibility? Well, first of all, he was in the wilderness, it tells us. That means he put God's presence over personal preference. He met with God far more than he met with his fashion consultant or the person helping him get likes on Instagram or increase his church service size. He was in God's presence. Number two is, it says that he preached repentance. You see, he valued scrutiny over self-deception. He said, let's get honest. Let's really get honest. Let's not be in denial about what's going on. Now, you can do that and still have no one listen to you. He combined it with this last characteristic, and I think it's the powerful scrutiny with this last characteristic that really makes him effective. He wore camel's hair and he ate locusts. What does that mean? Humility over status. You see, John the Baptist had great authority because he spoke the truth, but he did it in humility. There's a lot of people out there speaking truth now, and they're doing it in anger and outrage. And there's a few people, well, they're humble and kind and nice, but they don't have the courage to speak the truth. You put those two things together. You say, Curt, John the Baptist wasn't humble. He was baptizing people and yelling at people and preaching repentance. My friend, John the Baptist said this, I must be less and Jesus must be more. He said, I'm not even fit to untie his sandals. The lowest position was the guy who washed the feet. He said, I'm not even at the lowest position. When John the Baptist walked in the room, it was about Jesus, not John. What's it about for you, my friend? What would happen if instead of getting outraged all the time, we met with God and set aside our personal preferences? We took time to actually scrutinize our own morality. We did a moral inventory of ourselves. And then we combined that with profound humility that says, I have one goal, not to win an agenda, not to make a point, not to increase my status online or otherwise, but to lift up Christ, to say he must be more. I think if we do that, like John the Baptist, we'll find the moral credibility to speak healing, forgiveness, and truth into a broken world.